Welcome back to the Always Aggressive podcast. Cory, Palm, Tanner Lipsett, and Coach Tony Ersland joining you. Guys, it's week 2. Good to see you. Week 2 for our show, week 2 of season 2, but also we're in the middle of week 2 of the fall semester here at Purdue. Tony, it's got to be great, just great to be seeing these guys every day.
Yeah, you miss it, right? I mean, absence makes your heart grow fonder, right? I mean, it's true. I miss seeing these guys. And even though we were able to see them through, RTC workouts, which we've talked about this summer, it wasn't the entire group. And to have everybody here kind of, back on their normal routine, or as normal as it's going to be, for the time being. I guess you can't really call it normal for sure, but it's just really good to have the guys back and to be working together for the common goal again. Yeah, it's been awesome.
How's everybody doing settling in as far as, the new setup, the new, like you said, we're just getting back in the room, just getting back in the weight room. Like how is everybody settling into the new, the new setup?
I don't even know if you can say we've settled in yet. The ground is always shifting under our feet. And honestly, I would say probably give us another couple of weeks because, with classes, some classes are online, some are in person. Guys are trying to figure out, their schedules still. And when I say even classes, like one day you might be on a Zoom call at a prescribed time. The next time you might be in person. The next time it might be a taped call, or a videotape presentation already. So just figuring those things out for the guys, will be important the next couple of weeks. And I'm sure we'll talk about what we've had to do from a scheduling standpoint later. But at least we know, hey, we've had a couple morning runs. We've had some good strength and conditioning sessions. And then we've actually been in the room. Yesterday, we were back in the room for the first time with a bunch of skill work and technique. And it's been great. Like I said, it's just nice to be in a routine of working out regularly.
It's been crazy. And you guys can all relate to this a little differently. With school back in session, we got 40,000 students back at Purdue. And they're walking to class and they're driving around and they're shopping and they're, it's, we all know this, but it's, I think we feel it more this year than ever before with the climate of society. Like West Lafayette is a very different town when the students are here.
Yeah.
And to have them all back and to have them kind of all doing their thing, it definitely has, with the summer that we've had, it's been pretty cool to see things go back to a sense of normalcy.
Yeah, there's a slowdown to the summer, but that's what it's like every year, right? So the summer, you don't even still notice it as much because your routine is, hey, things calm down anyway because a majority of the students leave. So now to have everybody come back, it's kind of like, hey, yeah, this is what it is and what it's supposed to be. And it gives you some normalcy, even if everybody's wearing a mask. As they should. But no, it's like I said, it's just been good to kind of have that energy, right? Young people bring that good energy, and I think we all need some good energy. So that's good. It's been good to have everybody back around.
Yeah, it's been fun.
One of the running jokes at our house is this is a great place to live when the students are gone. But I totally agree with you. Tanner, that's great. And Coach well said, there is a different energy on campus right now.
It's definitely a lot easier to find a parking spot.
Yeah, right.
That's the primary thing. And that's everywhere. That's at the grocery store. Oh, yeah. That's at the restaurant. That's at school. Like wherever it is, like much easier to find parking in the summer. So speaking of the guys being back, Coach, and you've gotten through coming up on a week of workouts and conditioning and weights. Anybody stand out to you as far as, they look good, they had a good summer, they changed their body, any standouts from the summer?
Well, I think a lot of anytime you return, it's a mixed bag. But yeah, I think if you look at a guy like Thomas Panola, he really was disciplined this summer. You can tell, there's that house in general, but a lot of guys look really good. They're not in the exact shape we want. Nobody expected that. Right. But I definitely think that, if you look at guys like Panola, Max Lyon, Phileas, they all look like they've been very disciplined. And I don't mean just with workouts. I think from how they're living standpoint, that lifestyle has paid off for those guys. And I would expect they've passed people, during this time. There's some guys that are going to try to get their body to bounce back and get in shape. And we've got time to do that for sure. But, those guys have passed some people. And as long as they keep going, they're going to be in a very good spot. And I'm happy with the majority of the team. I think last week we talked about some of the freshmen, they, haven't been kind of fully, integrated into the system, even with the summer. So, they're trying to figure things out. So it's going to, as you said, a few weeks of adjustment, but once we get everybody in the full swing, I like where this group's going to be.
Yeah. It's great that you bring up Panola with the fact that, you look at a guy that he's put his body through a bit of a crazy time here in the last year, moving up to heavyweight last year and putting on as much mass as he could. He was working hand in hand day to day with Elaine and trying to really fill out that heavyweight role. But so in doing that, he gave himself a whole nother challenge this summer in having to bring himself back down. And like you said, has done so really well. Kid looks great. I got to see him at our team meeting last week for the first time. And he looks as big and thick as ever, but you can tell that he's a 97 pounder now. He's not a heavyweight. Yeah,
he had that inflated look last year, pounding all of those 1,500 calorie shakes Elaine was making him, drink. You never saw a kid so happy to not have to drink a shake, right? I mean, so often we talk about the discipline of cutting weight. I will never forget the look of relief when he said, "Hey, coach, so I can stop drinking shakes now, right?" And anticipating him coming down. So I really get a kick out of that. And it does go to remind you, though, and we're joking around a little bit, but the discipline is the same. I don't think people always understand that, right? Like the commitment to either gaining or losing weight is the same. And I always tell kids that because sometimes they think, oh, I'm going up a weight class. I can eat what I want. I can do what I want. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Like you have to invest in eating clean. You're not dieting, right? But you got to eat clean so that you can put the lean mass on so you can recover and work hard again to make the gains you want. So I smile and I chuckle when, he just was so relieved that he didn't have to have those shakes anymore. But I'll tell you, it's going to serve him well this year because the gains he made in lean mass, it's going to make him fill out that singlet pretty well at 197, which is only going to help him.
And it's funny, people like when you talk about gaining weight and you talk about going up a weight class, it's not like we send them to McDonald's to be like, okay, buddy, we're going up a weight class. Go order you a couple pizzas and get ready to go here. Like it's not.
Hey, you'll get yourself in trouble saying go eat a few pizzas. Our strength coach Ryan Shane made that mistake one time, and Elaine got fired up. So I'm just saying, I'm not trying to get
you don't cross a lane.
Yeah, right. I don't want to tick her off either. So I'm not trying to throw Ryan back under the bus, Ryan, just so you hear me, bud. But, he made the mistake. He said, hey, man, go eat a couple pizzas. And I know that fired Elaine up. So you got to be careful.
Man. Yeah, that's a huge misconception, and I'm glad you brought that up because the work that Tom put in last year to get big and strong, and we're going to do that again. We're going to do that again with Jamarcus. Jamarcus knows that he's going to have to put in that dedication to fill out and get big, and Elaine and Ryan are excited for that challenge. But it's a different kind of dedication than the rest of these guys have, and so it's a unique thing in the sport. But I think it's really cool.
Yep.
You guys bring to mind another story of another Purdue a Purdue great, not a Purdue wrestler, Nick Hardwick. Who actually was a wrestler until he joined the Purdue football team. I don't think he was ever in the program here, but wrestled in high school, never played football really. Great football player, had a decade-long career in the NFL. But when he decided he was going to retire, he dropped like 70 pounds in like 3 months because he was no longer setting his alarm for 3 a.m. to get up and drink protein shakes.
Yep.
And then go back to bed for a couple hours. He was no longer working to have 12,000 good calories a day or whatever it was. And it's crazy. It's hard for the layperson to hear that and make sense of it. But, when you're the highly tuned athlete like these guys are, you know, and you're paying so close attention to it, the right way to do it is it is a different kind of discipline. It's fascinating to me.
Yeah, and well, here's the interesting thing. I'm going back because yesterday I had a couple conversations. You know, we're in the wrestling room again at Purdue for the first time. And like I said, working a bunch of just technique and different things. And I had 2 conversations with true freshmen about that exact thing, you know, and it was just like, hey, you got to learn to eat clean. I said, I'm not talking about dieting. You know, we got to learn to eat clean. You've got to establish that now. Yeah, we're not close to competing, but we've got to start now. Those kinds of things are habits you need to instill, and you need to learn to think that way. And a lot of kids haven't had to, right? You don't have the resources. You don't have a dietitian, much less, you know, fueling stations when you walk out of your weight training, or, you know, these training tables for the athletes. So just understanding what's available to you and then making good decisions is key. It's part of, you know, that journey to winning a national title, you know, and the sooner you can get them to understand that, the easier the road is. It's still a tough road, right? They don't, you know, winning national titles is not easy, but it can make, you know, that journey smoother, I guess.
Yeah, it's funny, you know, Cory brought up the football thing with the offensive linemen. We've had a history of guys like that. You know, Matt Light jumps into my head, a guy who played in the NFL, slimmed down a ton after he quit playing football. Peters Dry played center for us for a while.
Yeah.
Back when I was working with the football team, dude is tall and skinny now. It's crazy. Like these guys, the work that goes into getting that big and strong is so underrated. And, you know, you return to real life and you become a normal person when you're not burning thousands of calories per day with workouts and living in the weight room. And like Cory said, getting up in the middle of the night, drinking protein shakes, that's nuts, by the way. You know, so it's a whole different thing. But yeah, Tony, the guys on our team, you know, now a full year in the program, I should say back in the program after taking a hiatus there from wrestling. It's the guys who eat clean, the guys who take care of that, and they make that dedication to that. It's amazing to see how easily they make weight, how easily they just kind of exist during the season. You know, you don't see them starving themselves. You don't see them, you know, having to jump on the treadmill extra. You don't see, you know, they're able to focus on being great at wrestling as opposed to weight cutting.
Yeah, I think
and that goes such a long way because you have a limited bandwidth. There's only so many things you can concern yourself with at one time. And the more you make the other stuff easy, the more you can focus on being a great wrestler. If you get ahead in school, if you take care of your homework, if you're getting papers done, if you're studying, if you're routinely, you know, and you're not trying to cram for tests or do anything at the last minute, you got more bandwidth to apply to be a great wrestler. If you're not worried about eating all the time, if you're not worried about cutting weight, if you don't have to spend all this extra time on the treadmill or on the stair stepper, more time to apply to technique, more time to becoming a great wrestler. Like it's amazing how all that stuff kind of cycles back to the same deal.
Yeah, no, it all ties together, and that's what you want kids to understand. Very few people can compartmentalize to the extent where you can have a complete train wreck or, you know, a dumpster fire in one aspect of your life and still come and be excellent in the other. There's been I've coached a few kids that just amaze me that, you know, they could have some social habits where maybe staying out late or, you know what I mean, not getting to bed early and still show up and win the run in the morning. But that is not the norm, right? And so that's why you build a program the way you build it, though. You look for those kids who have the habits and the traits and the values that you do. And that's what we've tried here because, you know that's the road, right? It's just few and far between that you can have a dumpster fire in academics and be great in the mat, you know, because it creates so much more stress on you. A teacher's after you, a coach is after you, or Nikki, our academic advisor, is after you. And you're just like, man, I can't focus on wrestling because I'm stressed out. I got to scramble to get my homework done, or I don't know if I'm going to pass this class. Like, it just doesn't work that way for most people. And so to understand that, hey, let's have our life in order. And part of that is eating clean so that you're making weight on time in the right way and you feel as good as you possibly can to perform at a high level. Yeah, it's just one aspect. Now I don't have to worry about about that. I can just focus, as you said, on getting good. Let's focus on making improvements in other places. So, and for some guys, winning that national title, it comes down to diet. Like maybe their technique and their fight and their grit and their toughness and their shape is good, but they make weight in such a poor way that they feel terrible when they walk out, and it takes kind of that last 5-10% off them, where they don't perform well in the match, and that's why they're giving away matches. So everybody's got their areas of concentration, we call it, and that's, you try to identify that with the kids, and you try to tailor to what they need. Some kids, it's about finishing the single leg. Some kids, it's about lifestyle. Hell, as you just said, some kids, it's about, hey, let's be a 3.0 student. Because I know if they got their grades under control, man, the rest of their life is pretty good. They'll be okay. So, yeah, it's really about kind of looking at each kid and what they need and trying to help them, get there.
And that rolls over into coaching too, Tony. Like it's amazing. If we're able to recruit kids who do the right things and they're good students and stay out of trouble, that's more time you can focus on. If you're not having to run them down about their grades, if you're not having to run them down about going to the bars, if you're not having to run them down about, stuff like, trashing their apartment, that's more time we can spend on getting them to be better wrestlers.
Yeah.
So it's funny how it's all linked that way.
It is. And, we talk a lot about culture, and we talk a lot about leadership. And the older I get, the more I believe in, leadership from within with those kids. And, I've always told the team, if I've got to lead every second of every day for this year, we're in trouble, right? I mean, we're in trouble, guys. And I haven't done my job then, or us as a staff, we haven't. So what you hope for is that you have leadership, when they're sitting around this weekend around the campfire or whatever they're doing, relaxing, right? They can't go out in big groups. So we've told them, hey, spend time with each other in your backyard. So when they're sitting around there, what they're talking about, what they're thinking, the values, that are being, expressed is huge, because we just don't have as many hours with them. We're limited kind of in some ways with the NCAA and preseason hours and that stuff. So, man, you hope you have leaders on your team. And I really believe that's where the battle's won and lost for a lot of teams.
Absolutely. You said something about being old there, and I really wanted to crack a joke, but I'm gonna let you off the hook. I'm gonna be nice today.
Well, the problem there, T, is we're all kind of in that same mix right now. When you're closer, when you're closer to retirement than you are to your college days, it's starting to get ugly, Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it. Let's leave that alone. Coach, you brought this up a little bit earlier. Go ahead. Cory, you got something?
No, go ahead.
Okay, you brought this up a little bit earlier, and this is something definitely that I can relate to, but I think it might be interesting to some of our listeners out there and our viewers out there. Scheduling has taken on a whole new realm of difficulty, and not talking about scheduling with other teams, but just like our day-to-day schedule, our practice schedule, our weightlifting schedule. There's some new hurdles out there that we've got to clear, and in doing so, try to create the best atmosphere for the student athletes. It's been to say it's been interesting would be the understatement of the century.
Yeah. No, well, and Tanner and I are laughing because we've spent way too many hours on this. So, I guess this is the inside joke right now we're going to talk about, because Tanner and I have spent a lot of hours on this, and then at the last minute had to have some, changes as well. But just to let people kind of know how we're functioning in today's environment. Yeah. So we're working out, but obviously you want to do that where you can limit, right, exposure and the spread of COVID, right? So there's protocols in place. What we've tried to do is to put everybody in small groups or pods, meaning around eight guys or so. Okay. And now you're talking about 31 guys that all have classes staggered throughout the day, different majors, some are seniors. And so they got to have this class, there's no room to move a class. Some are freshmen and they have more general electives, and it's flexible, but you've got to take those guys, and we broke them down into groups of 8 based on housing. Because if people are aware, contact tracing obviously is a big deal, and to limit how many guys you may lose. If somebody had, potentially tested positive, you put them in their groups of their housing. So trying to put them in those groups based on who they're living with, as well as weight class, as well as what their class schedules are and what times of day they're available, has been a real challenge. I'm happy to say, though, we think we've got it figured out. But as I mentioned, we're going to give it a couple weeks, and we're going to see how things go, and then we'll adjust accordingly. But the nice thing is, from my standpoint, we're not like a team sport where we need 11 guys running offense and defense. Technically, you only need 2 guys, right, to have a workout. And so from that standpoint, I think wrestling is in a good spot pertaining to practice and workouts with COVID. So from that standpoint, we can limit things, keep it safe. Our guys are cleaning, obviously Purdue facilities, and those people are doing a great job. All the protocols are in place. So groups come in, they work out, things get wiped down where they've touched, mats get cleaned, and then we get ready for the next group to come as well. And then everybody is, as I said, staying kind of in their pods. So, so good so far, but it has been a challenge. Typically we just practice at 2:00 and everybody comes in the room and we get going as a group, and no such thing, at this point this year. So yeah, it's I'm probably a little more gray than I was last week, and Tanner lost more hair off the top of his head, but we're all running.
I'm all out. No, it was really interesting too, and I honestly I think we were a little fortunate, Tony, to that the way some things worked out the way they did, because we had to break the roster down by who lives together, and then we had to look at their class schedules, because like Coach said, we got a lot of different guys that are in a lot of different places, and they all have different majors, and they all have different goals and career aspirations. And, we've got engineers, and we've got, building construction management guys. We got guys in health sciences. Go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say too, because this just popped in my head, is, these guys did what we had asked them to. They left that 2 to 4 block open, right? Because that's our common practice time, 2 to 4:30. So last spring they scheduled their classes, as you do. Mm-hmm. And so now everybody had that 2 to 4:30 block open. And so now you're like, well, they all got classes, and we need to stagger this out and still clean the room in between. So that, I guess that made it even more challenging, because they simply did what we had asked them to do,
Yeah. And they did a great job at it too. That's the crazy thing. Like, our guys have very minimal class conflicts for our standard practice time. So, but then, here we are with the standard practice time, and we can only put, maybe half the team in the room at one time. Yep. And even doing so, have to have them on opposite sides of the room where they're not, interacting with each other and creating contact tracing situations. So it was nuts to really go through, and, and obviously, it would have been easy for us to be like, we're just going to make these kids get up at 5:30 in the morning. That'll make it easy. We don't have to worry about class then. Let's do that. But I think it would have been really, they've got enough challenges going on right now with their schedules. I think the fact that we did not do that to them was a pretty good thing.
Yep. Well, and they're already getting up early a couple times a week for morning workouts as far as conditioning, right? But yeah, you're right. It's preseason. It's going to be a long year. Obviously the goal is to get to the national championships, peaking at that time. So it's all about laying the base and the foundation. And I actually ended workouts yesterday with a couple of the groups just by saying, I'm not going to be upset for making a mistake in technique. But we've got to have the attitudes, right? Because the attitude drives your confidence, it drives your work ethic, right? It drives your energy, and so really focusing on having the right attitude about how we're approaching this for everyone is key. Because like I said, we've got some guys that are in a really good place. They were able to train hard all summer, and they're in a good place physically and mentally. Then you had some guys, and through no fault of their own, they didn't have great training situations, right? And so now they're trying to catch up a little bit. And so you see, maybe a guy's fatigue, and he's a little frustrated, or he's a little down because he's not where he wants to be. But, my point is, hey, I just need you have a great attitude and focus here. Give me the effort. Give me the effort and focus. If you make a mistake, we're okay with that, but let's just get up every time and give us another good effort. So just trying to instill that in these guys at this point in time, I think is the key thing for the group.
Well, and that's contagious too. Like if you come in positive, maybe you bring up somebody who's having a bad day. If you come in negative, if that's a battle that you're fighting every day, you're going to bring somebody down around you too. And that goes both ways. You can't have that.
Good call, Cory. Absolutely.
Yep.
I told one of the guys the other day, and I think it's very cliche, but I think we're going to end up, saying this a lot with the amount of uncertainty that's in front of us. It's going to be a marathon. It's not a sprint.
For real.
Yeah.
It's going to be a marathon. We've got to, it's not only just that great attitude and the great effort, but it's being able to sustain that for, almost undetermined amount of time.
Right. Well, and to sustain that, you need the group, right? I mean, you need people to pick you up. You need people to push you when you need a kick in the pants. You need that too. And we talk about this often. I'll throw you another coaching cliche, but I mean, it's to me, it's true. If you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. And if you want to win that national championship as a team, right, not just as an individual, then you need people. You need to take people with you. And so that's our goal is within the team realm, right, as well. We want individual national champions, but we also want that team titles, those team trophies. And so we got to go together, and that's a big deal for us. So as you said, if it's a marathon, you need people. So these guys got to pull each other.
I know that's a coaching cliche, Coach, but I've only heard a couple people say it, so I give you full credit for that. I love that saying.
I love it too. Thank you.
It's a big one for him. So, wrap up the show a little bit. We've gotten some more wrestling out there. There's more events popping up, more things going on. You're hearing about things all over the country. Had another event down in Virginia this last weekend. The UFC took their first dive into I guess professional freestyle and Greco wrestling. There were some. I wasn't able to watch it, but I did do some reading on it. I followed the results, and they wrestled in a cage. They did the octagon. Right. For the first time. That provided some new wrinkles. But I think the most important thing, I heard the production quality of the event was outstanding. I heard that the camera angles were all great. They did a great job, being around the venue, and then having a guy like Kale Sonnen on there to call the event brought a little bit more credibility and notoriety to it. And obviously he's a guy who's had tremendous success in mixed martial arts. But also has a great wrestling background and is a huge advocate for the sport.
Yeah, by all accounts, right? We're not in the building, so you don't really know how it was run. But everybody that was there and experienced it, it was first class and enjoyed it. And I did think it was interesting with the twist being in the cage. It stimulated conversation, at least on social media as well, about, does that change some of the results? You know what I mean? And that's great. There was wrestling and then it got, people excited again about the sport and kind of going back and forth on some things. So, we had talked about this a little earlier. I think these events are good. It's kind of been, an evolution of things with COVID. And I'm glad to see that wrestling is continuing to try to find ways to give our consumers what they want, I guess.
I got to say, from a business model standpoint, it's brilliant. I think it's a brilliant move for Dana White's crew to do this. So many UFC fighters have a wrestling background, so there's that built-in fandom there already. There, like we've talked about, and people in the sport well aware, there's not much opportunity beyond college for great wrestlers. There's the international elite level stuff, but there's a whole lot of dudes that fall just below that. If UFC wants to get into this 3, 4, 5 events a year, they could put together great cards, and there'd be great interest, I think, from a wrestling community that just really loves the sport. Unlike a lot of fandoms out there. I mean, the wrestling community is so strong.
Well, not to mention the UFC's got some pretty deep pockets. Yeah. To be able to, this is not, you look at a lot of these other organizations that are trying to put events on and whatnot, and, they're probably able to pay some people, and they're probably able to, get some people going to do some stuff. But the bankroll of the UFC and that company, to be able to, if they decide to invest in professional wrestling, that would be a huge thing for the sport and for the visibility of wrestling, and for young kids to aspire to something for after college,
right,
to keep training. So that could be a really positive thing. I'm hoping so.
Yeah,
I'm hoping
sure.
so.
Yep. Well, I know, and that kind of brings us to we had the tweet yesterday, September 19th. Nobody knew what that meant right away, and then later in the day it came out. Now we know that we have another event, right? With the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club, and it looks like Cliff Keen as well as some other wrestlers are going to be involved. But that looks like something again that will test the waters and give the people what they want.
And it was good to see both the UFC event and this Nittany Lion Wrestling Club event getting some women's matches on the card.
Yep.
Women's wrestling was just named somewhat recently NCAA emerging sport. And so to see some of these, professional opportunities for these young women to go out and compete is a great thing for the sport. When you bring women's wrestling in with men's wrestling, you've doubled your size right off the top, because now you got twice as many people that can do it.
Right. So
it's going to be, I think it's going to be a great thing for the sport at large. I think it's going to be great for the visibility of wrestling. And, there's always room for more fans. There's always room for more. We were robbed of the opportunity to put 60,000 people in Minneapolis for NCAA championships this year, which, like we said, there's always room for more. But I would love to see that continue to happen. More opportunities, more programs, more eyes on the sport. It'd be great.
I think that's going to be important too when we talk about women's wrestling, is just continuing to grow it, right? I mean, it's clearly caught fire and you see it exponentially growing, but the goal is to continue to grow. I mean, you would love to see, let's just use random numbers, but if you have a men's roster of 50, you want a women's roster of 50. You know what I mean? You don't want to be, 50 and 25. You want to push it, to where, you have these huge numbers across the country in all programs. I think that's going to be, or should be the goal, right? I mean, that's where you want to be with funding these programs. And I think it's really going hard. You have huge interest in adding programs and establishing this, but that to me is going to be the next phase, if you can make that happen, because you have these universities that are enrollment driven, right? And so they rely on tuition dollars. And so to grow, you need tuition dollars coming in as well. And I think that's going to be important. That's why when I talk about, hey, you want high roster numbers, that's where, to me, there's growth for wrestling in a time like this. But you need, right, the numbers to be high to make it worth it to a university, right? If they want to add wrestling, you're going to have to show them that it's worth it. Okay. It can't just be a drain on finances. So if you can show them a path through enrollment that, hey, this is going to be a great thing for you, then I see, like, hey, limitless possibilities in that way.
Absolutely. Cory, do we have anything else today, man? We got into some cool stuff today. It was nice to be able to talk about the guys doing some things.
Cool conversation. Yeah, I wanted to, we were talking about, cleaning the room a bit ago. I wanted to give a shout out. I ran into Steve Bowes, the day custodian who's charged with mopping that floor, mopping those mats. And there was a glimmer in his eye yesterday. He's like, man, the wrestlers are back. They were in this morning, and it's so good to have them back. And I'm like, yeah, things are getting a little bit back to normal. So shout out to Steve, the great job he does, and that whole crew.
Steve's a good dude. We like having Steve around.
Yeah, that's well said, Cory. I appreciate that, because you're right. I mean, to make this work this year with the protocols for cleaning and then those, we're all going to have to work a little harder, and Steve's included in that, and he does a great job for our guys. And it was good to see him around yesterday, right? Like I hadn't been in the room since June just to look at a few things and try to plan. And so to see him yesterday was it was great. So that's well said, and we appreciate Steve and everything he does.
For sure.
Well, I'll follow that up too with the fact that, Cory, it was one of the refreshing things about my job is Tony never ceases to amaze me sometimes. And we were talking about, we're going through this schedule. We'll tie a few different conversations here together. We're going through this schedule and we're trying to make this work, and we're trying to figure out cleaning, and we're trying to figure out scheduling and all this stuff. And Tony and our assistant coaches, when we were talking about cleaning, like they threw their hats right in the ring. You're like, you know what? You need me to push them up so we can get this done faster? You need me to clean the room? I'll clean the room.
Yep.
I'm worried about trying to make this work for everybody. It wasn't about the fact that, you could see a lot of head coaches out there that would, you want me to push a mop?
Right.
They'd back up. But no, Ersland was like, he was running around looking for the mop. He was ready to start cleaning right then. Like AJ's over in the corner. He's like, man, we got this other mop we could use. We could do this one. Like it was so refreshing to watch our staff, like, just ready to, they're ready to take it and run with it. And like, whatever we can do to make this work, guys, let's make this happen. So it was, shout out to you guys for being willing to roll your sleeves up.
And not at all surprising.
It's kind of like we want to wrestle, huh?
Yeah, I mean,
let's go.
Yeah, let's go. That's well said. Let's go.
I think that we'll leave it there. We're going to go wrestle. How about that? Thanks, guys. We'll catch y'all next week. Blow it up.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.